Hello and welcome. My name is Christina from Empowered Creator. I'm a mindset and conscious manifesting teacher and coach, and this is my YouTube channel. Here I talk about all things law of assumption, mindset, conscious manifesting, the quantum universe, and a lot more. And my goal is to simplify everything without the fluff. So if you guys like this content and you would like to see more of it, I would love it if you would subscribe to this channel, comment on this video, like it, share it, and stick around. Also, if you need help with your specific situation, I offer one-on-one coaching, email coaching, small group coaching, as well as custom subliminals for whatever needs you may have. So if you're interested in any of these services, the links are below in the description box. Click on them and they're going to take you to my website. With all that being said, let's dive into today's video. In today's video, I wanted to address a question that I get quite often, and that is, if I'm manifesting a specific person, how do I actually deal with them in the 3D? If you've been in the manifesting community for some time, you've probably heard that you need to be living in the end, you need to dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled or in the end state. So how does that actually translate in how you act and how you respond to situations in the 3D, and how do you actually act towards your specific person? This is what I'll be discussing in today's video, so stay tuned. So one thing I want you guys to remember, and I know this is going to sound very basic to some of you, but you always need to remember that regardless, because it's the most important point. The 3D does not exist in and of itself. What I mean by that is that the 3D does not exist outside of you and independently of you. The 3D is always a reflection of who you are within. And what we mean by who you are within is, what are your dominant assumptions? What are your dominant perceptions of whatever the situation might be? Who you see yourself as, who you see your specific person as, how you see your relationship, what you expect from them, how you expect them to show up, how you expect your relationship to be between the two of you, what are your feelings and your thoughts about the situation. And so all of that constitutes what we call your inner dominant state. So who you dominantly are within, what you dominantly perceive, what you dominantly believe, what you dominantly expect, and what you're dominantly thinking and feeling about your SP and the situation with your SP is ultimately what determines what you get to experience in the 3D and what the 3D reflects back to you. So this is very important to remember, that the 3D is never independent from you. It always depends on who you are within. What it reflects back to you is who you are within. So then, to answer the question of how you deal with the 3D, how you act in the 3D, how you show up in the 3D towards your specific person, of course depends on the situation, on the individual situation you're in. But what matters even more than that is how you perceive the 3D, how you perceive your specific person, how you perceive your relationship with your specific person. Because this is what is going to be reflected back to you from the 3D, that includes your specific person. And this is also going to determine, to a large degree, how you show up towards them. So to give a general answer to how I show up in the 3D towards my specific person, how I deal with my specific person in the 3D, you act normally. You act as you normally would. And what do I mean by that? Again, that depends on your individual situation. For example, if your SP is your friend, you continue to act as a friend towards them, as you normally would act towards them. If your SP is someone you're dating, but maybe you're not exclusive with yet, you continue to go on dates with them, and you act normally, you act like yourself, like you normally would. If they're just a coworker or an acquaintance or someone you see at the gym, you talk to them normally, as you normally would, and then you go about your day. So don't feel like there is a need for you to do something very specific or something radically different in the 3D towards them. Not at all. What you're doing differently, and what is the most important thing, is how you are shifting your perceptions within. If, for example, you have a perception that your specific person only sees you as a friend, you want to start shifting that perception within you so that you start convincing yourself that your SP actually has romantic interest in you. If there's someone you see at the gym once a week or twice a week, and you're not sure if they're attracted to you, you want to be shifting your inner perceptions and start feeling more and more naturally about the possibility that they actually are attracted to you. If they are your ex and you're still in contact, you want to start convincing yourself and feeling more and more natural about them wanting to get back together with you. Not rejecting you, not seeing you as someone who they don't want to be with. Instead, seeing you as someone who they want to be with, who they're missing, who they want to get back together with, who they want a relationship with, who they want to choose. So you're not required to be doing anything special in the 3D. You don't want to change your behavior. You don't want to behave strange. You don't want to start talking to them a different way than you normally would. But here's what happens when you actually start shifting your inner perceptions about yourself, about your SP, and about your relationship. You actually start seeing them under a different light. The more you do the inner work, the inner techniques, the more you start feeling more natural about the possibility of being with your SP, about the possibility that your SP is attracted to you or wants to be back together with you, or whatever the situation might be, you actually start feeling differently within you about the whole thing. You start perceiving the whole situation differently. Whereas before you might have been dwelling in a story of rejection and being afraid that your SP would never want to get back together with you or get together with you or be a couple with you or choose you, and you would be afraid of their reactions and you would feel not attractive to them, you would be afraid that they would be having third parties or all sorts of things like that. Now, as you're convincing yourself of the opposite story, of the story that you actually want, you start feeling a different way. You start feeling loved by them. You start feeling wanted by them. You start feeling attractive to them. You start feeling it. You start actually becoming that person. And what that does is it automatically and very naturally changes your behavior in the 3D, but even more importantly, it changes how they show up towards you. So don't be surprised if the inner work you're doing is actually reflected back to you one day and they start showing more interest in you. All of a sudden, they start communicating more. All of a sudden, they start wanting to talk to you more. All of a sudden, they ask you on a date, for example. If they're an ex, all of a sudden, they start showing renewed interest in you. It could be any of these things. And so then you realize that your reality, your 3D reality is shifting. So then you modify your behavior accordingly. Because you're no longer the person who is rejected by their specific person. You are now the person who is chosen by their specific person. You are now the person who is wanted by their specific person, who their specific person is attracted to. And so you start behaving in that way because your own perceptions within have changed. They have started to be reflected back to you in the 3D. And so now you're a new person. But in the meantime, until the 3D shows the new reflection, and let me say here, the more natural it feels within you, usually the faster it's going to be reflected back to you. What you want to do is act normally towards them. Act as you normally would. If you're friends, act as a friend. If you just say hi at the gym or at the office, just say hi. You know, you don't need to modify your behavior. You don't need to do something special or something different. Be yourself, be normal, be natural. And just make sure that you're saturating yourself with the story that you want to experience in the 3D. And have the certainty and the knowing that the 3D is going to reflect it. Now, if you're in a situation that might need some boundaries, if you're in a situation where you're dealing with disrespectful behavior, then feel free to set those boundaries. Feel free to even walk away from that behavior. And you can hold that space for that person. You can trust them that through your inner work, through saturating your mind with a different version of them, they can become a different version. They can treat you better. They're going to be capable and willing to treat you better. But in the 3D, and while you're waiting, if you feel like they're disrespecting you with their behavior, or if it's behavior you don't prefer, or if it's behavior that needs some boundaries of any sort, don't be afraid to set them. It's okay. It's not going to hurt your manifestation. It's not going to affect it. In fact, it's going to establish that you are the person who commands respect. You are the person who deserves respect. You are the person who respects themselves. And so you know and trust that your SP will also follow suit. But in the meantime, you can set some healthy boundaries, and that's absolutely okay. If you're in no contact with your specific person, that's a different kind of dealing with the 3D because your 3D is showing, presumably for some time, not much movement. So in that case, again, you don't want to be modifying your behavior. You don't want to start texting them and bombarding them in texts and phone calls all of a sudden. You want to just cultivate the assumption and rest in the assumption that you're going to have contact again, you're going to have communication again, things are going to change, things are going to shift in your favor, and you can go about your life, living your best life, enjoying yourself, but don't feel like you have to modify something in your behavior. Don't feel like you have to change something just because in your mind and in your imagination, you're living in the end. Living in the end is going about your life knowing that your situation is going to change. So the way you deal with the 3D while your manifestation is maturing and as things are happening behind the scenes to bring you your manifestation, you just want to go about your life, be your normal, natural self, be who you would be anyway, and just have the knowing, have the certainty, have the inner confidence that your 3D is going to change in your favor. And remember what I just said, as you're changing your perceptions about the 3D, you are naturally going to change your perceptions about your relationship with your specific person themselves, and also yourself towards your specific person. So because your dominant inner state has changed, you are naturally moved to act and deal with the 3D the same way that is consistent with your new state. So try not to worry too much about the 3D. Be normal, be natural, be yourself, and just know that your desire is coming. Know that the 3D is going to reflect it. With all that being said, I'm going to wrap up this video here. I intend that this has helped. As always, I very much appreciate you guys being on this channel, watching this content. I love making this content for you. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all at the next video. Until then, take care and bye-bye.